My name is Margaret Thompson. I am 34 years old, and until today, I thought I knew my family. The air was chilly, but even that could not compete with the coldness seeping through the walls of our home, which I now felt on the outside. I stood in the shadows as laughter and clinking glasses spilled out of the windows, mocking my solitude. Today was meant to celebrate my father's promotion, a milestone that felt just beyond my reach, like a cruel joke. Through the frostbitten glass, I caught sight of my dad, his larger-than-life figure radiating pride and joy. My mother beamed at his side, draped in a shimmering dress that spoke of the esteem we were supposed to represent. A perfect family celebrating the success of the head of the household. But these displays only shrouded a more painful truth. I had become a ghost in my own family, bereft of acknowledgement for everything I had done. I thought back to the countless times I had sacrificed my aspirations to care for them, how I had juggled bills, canceled plans, and even set aside a promising career. In hindsight, those choices only burdened me more. They saw my love as an obligation to be dismissed, an act of devotion to be taken for granted. Each layer of laughter was another stab, another reminder of my isolation. As I wrapped my arms around myself, Sarah, my sister, meandered toward the window where I stood. My heart quickened, a flicker of hope igniting within me. Perhaps she would remember our shared childhood, the bond we once had, a connection I thought invincible. Yet, as she passed, her laughter boomed over the celebration, and she didn't even glance in my direction. The moment crushed what had been left of my spirit. "Don't worry, Dad. Maggie won't dare come in here." I heard her taunt from inside, her voice laced with disdain that stung more than the winter air. I turned away from the spectacle, a silent scream rising in my throat. They were celebrating their lives, their achievements, while I stood outside, uninvited and unwanted. The walls I had once considered a sanctuary now felt like barriers trapping me in isolation. The warmth they exuded was foreign to me, feeling instead like a frigid rejection. I gripped my jacket tighter around me, fighting off tears that threatened to spill. How had it come to this? My love and sacrifice twisted into a burden too heavy for them to bear. In that suffocating moment, a fire ignited within me, a flicker of defiance I hadn't felt in years. They thought they had left me with nothing, but I was left with everything. The realization roared through my veins, igniting a resilience I had forgotten was there. My identity as a daughter could not be dictated by their opinions anymore. Perhaps this humiliation would serve as the spark I needed to regain my life. I walked away from the window, a lump in my throat and a fierce determination swelling in my chest. Let them celebrate. I would find a way to reclaim my worth. Their laughter, once a source of pain, would now fuel my resolve to redefine who I was. I left that night, heart heavy but my mind clearer than it had been in years. The world around me blurred as I walked away from the house I had once thought of as home. Each step echoed with the weight of my burdens, the sacrifices I had made, the dreams I had set aside, all pushing to the forefront of my mind. The echo of their laughter haunted me, a twisted melody underscoring my isolation. My car felt like a refuge as I sank into the familiar leather seat, but it couldn't shield me from the memories that flooded back. I drove aimlessly, the streetlights flickering past like ghosts of my past life. I could see my childhood home looming in my mind, filled with love and laughter before it was tainted by years of expectations and sacrifices. The earliest memories surfaced through the waves of my consciousness. I thought of the time I learned to ride my bike, my father's sturdy hand guiding me until I finally steadied myself. I remembered the pride sparkling in his eyes when I pedaled on my own for the first time, while my mother cheered beside him as if I were winning an Olympic medal. Those fleeting moments became rare jewels in a chest I had buried deep, the faded glow overshadowed by years filled with criticism and the unwavering belief that I was nothing without them. As I rounded the corner, the local coffee shop came into view, my sanctuary during college days. It was here I had spent countless hours sketching my future, believing I could merge my passion for art with a career. But when my father's health declined, I shelved those dreams to care for him and my mother, forfeiting my aspirations for their needs. I pulled into the parking lot, a mix of nostalgia and regret filling my chest. The smell of freshly brewed coffee and pastries wafted through the doors, bringing back a flood of memories. I stepped inside, the bell above the door tinkling softly. The barista smiled warmly, her eyes lighting up with recognition. "Maggie, it's been a while. The usual?" "Yeah, please," I managed, the smile feeling heavy on my lips. My heart ached for connections I had relinquished, the laughter and joy I had buried under the weight of family loyalty. As I waited, I glanced around at the other patrons, families huddled in happy conversation, couples leaning in close, sharing secrets and laughter. It was a scene I'd long forgotten, and yet it felt familiar enough to stir something deep within me. With my coffee in hand, I found a table in the corner, unseen from prying eyes. The steam from the mug curled into the air, providing a comforting warmth against the chill of painful memories. I rejected the comforting words I would say, words meant to absolve my sorrow because they felt weak. The stark truth remained. My family had molded me into an outsider, an unwelcome participant in my own life. Memories of past holidays rolled through my mind, a painful juxtaposition of warmth and isolation. I thought of my mother's criticisms, slicing through my spirit during family gatherings. "You need to look presentable, Maggie. No one wants to see your sloppiness at this table." That piercing remark lingered long after the meal concluded, fueling insecurities far beyond a single dinner. In those moments, I could barely remember the girl who had woven dreams into her art. Instead, I became the woman who sat quietly, absorbing every remark like skin absorbing water. The well-meaning advice always directed me back to practicality, the unspoken assumption that my dreams were less valuable than the family brand. My grip on the mug tightened, the heat igniting anger mixed with longing, a desire to reclaim what had been taken from me. As I sat there, a realization began to dawn. I could shift my narrative. For every sacrifice I made, for every moment of shame I endured, I could create a path for myself. I refused to let them dictate my identity any longer. Once home, I rummaged through the clutter that had accumulated in my late grandmother's attic, a space filled with remnants of my past. Dust motes danced in the beams of light filtering through the window, creating a serene glow that belied the turmoil inside me. As I sorted through forgotten boxes, I unearthed trinkets from my childhood, a faded diary, an old teddy bear, and countless drawings I had made before self-doubt stifled my creativity. Flipping through the diary, I found entries filled with aspirations of art shows and gallery openings, visions of a future I had once believed in. With a pang of nostalgia, I couldn't help but wonder how far off those dreams now felt. Each page told a story of a girl dreaming big, despite feeling small in the shadow of her family, a girl who longed to break free but had been silenced by their expectations. Then my fingers brushed against something cold and solid, something that echoed with secrets. I reached deeper into the box and pulled out a safe, its metal frame dusty and tarnished. Intrigued, I examined it for a moment, a sense of dread and curiosity swirling around me. What could it contain? I wondered. Curiosity gave way to something deeper as I remembered how my family had always kept everything tightly under wraps. Maybe this safe carried pieces of the truth that I had long been denied. With a racing heart, I retrieved a small toolkit from a nearby shelf and began to work on the lock, my fingers trembling with hope and trepidation. After several tense minutes, I heard a gratifying click. The safe opened, revealing folders stuffed with neatly organized documents, papers detailing familial transactions that contradicted everything I believed about us. Buried correspondences crafted in perfect penmanship revealed manipulative dealings involving our family business, hidden assets they had shielded from me. Betrayal cut through me like a knife. The tangled legacy I had been raised to embrace was now unspooled before my eyes. My heart raced as I leafed through page after page, absorbing everything. The truth was suffocating, filling the air around me and unraveling the carefully constructed facade my family maintained. I wasn't just a burden. I was the unwitting custodian of deep family secrets, the one holding the pieces that had kept me estranged and small. During those darkest days, I found a framework that changed everything for me. The complete guide I followed is outlined in the first comment below. It might help if you're facing something similar. With each document, my anger surged, transformed into something more powerful: determination. I was tired of being the invisible woman who stood in the shadows of their achievements. I would confront them, not with rage, but with the undeniable truth of our shared history. My journey of silent vengeance had begun. I spent hours poring over the documents, my eyes scanning each line, a mix of dread and exhilaration coursing through me. The safe had unveiled a hidden dimension of our family that I was blissfully unaware of for far too long. Names I recognized intertwined with others I did not, amounts that made my head spin and promises that had been buried under painless laughter. Each revealing folder ripped away the sanctity of my family's facade, exposing raw wounds that had never healed. The first folder contained financial statements from business dealings that predated my birth. I traced the signatures with my fingertips, surprised to see how naively I had believed the stories spun around our dinner table. "We're a small, close-knit family," my father would say. "Nothing important to share beyond what you already know." Yet, the meticulous records that spanned decades told a story of deception, greed, and manipulation, showcasing not just what they owned, but what they had withheld from me. As I dug deeper, I uncovered letters between my father and another business partner, steeped in discussions of investments with phrases like "beneficial to keep her in the dark," that sent chills down my spine. How could they talk about me with such a dismissive ease? I had been conditioned to respect their decisions, to think that they had my best interests at heart. But the truth was more sinister than I could have ever imagined. I was an afterthought, my dreams a resolution left in the void of their calculations. Flipping through the pages, I found one particular correspondence that gnawed at me. It was a real estate purchase agreement tied to a property my family owned under an alias. My mother had told me they were struggling, that they needed my assistance, but here was proof that the family business thrived, prospering while I was sacrificing my wants. Emotions spiraled within me. I felt disillusioned and emboldened, simultaneously keenly aware of their duplicity and filled with the spirit of rebellion. I imagined my father's face if he were to see me now, reclaiming my voice, uncoupling myself from the dependency they instilled in me from a young age. I wasn't the burden they thought I was. I had merely been trapped in a gilded cage. Yet, the revelation I was beginning to piece together felt incomplete. I needed more substantial evidence. If I were to confront them, I had to be armed with the facts, not just feelings. I remembered the countless hours I spent listening to my father and his circle of friends brag about their deals, how they would dismiss the mundane with the flick of a wrist and deride my ambitions as youthful naivety. It had been tales of financial success. They were so casual about their exploits, and I had accepted their superiority without question. That night, as I sifted through the final few folders, I found little snippets of my mother's own dealings. My heart tightened. She had been complicit. I couldn't help but feel the weight of betrayal deepen. There were reports proposing partnerships with various companies that my mother had once touted as altruistic, promoting community welfare. Nothing hinted at the underlying motives she had masked so well. My mother, the eternal nurturing figure, had wielded her influence to manipulate situations in her favor while leaving me in the dark, believing I was acting in the family's best interest. As the sun began to rise, I made a choice. I would not confront them until I had everything I needed to turn the tide. I needed the strength to face them without fear, and I needed to cultivate a plan as precise as the financial statements I had reviewed. I began conceptualizing an approach that I hoped would unravel their veneer while giving me the victory I so desperately sought. The next few days melded into a blur, each one consumed by the information I uncovered and the growing resolve to forge my own future. I spent hours at the local library, combing through public records and digitized news pieces that provided even more context for the happenings within my family's business. The sheer volume of undocumented information was overwhelming, yet I felt invigorated. The quiet pulse of truth throbbed beneath my skin. Every time I uncovered another shard of the truth, I furiously documented it, assembling what could only be the beginnings of a formidable case. It was a process that solidified my determination. I would be the catalyst of change, a reckoning for the false narratives my parents had spun. In between the late nights and early mornings, I worked on my own sketches, an intimate ritual I had long neglected. The strokes of charcoal against paper released the tension knotted in my back, battered my thoughts into something beautiful. The images reflected my longing for freedom and the passions I yearned to pursue. My designs bore the weight of my newfound knowledge, and I realized they were not just escapes, they were declarations of independence. Once satisfied with the dominoes I had arranged, I resolved to take the next step. I sent an unassuming text to my sister Sarah, asking if we could meet for coffee. It was a calculated risk. Her allegiance had always rested with our parents, but I sensed that she too had been living a half-life, stifled by the same expectations that suffocated my own aspirations. The urgency of my mission eclipsed my trepidation, and I hoped this would be the turning point that may pave the way for my confrontation. She agreed, and I spent the day before our meeting anxiously preparing. When we finally met, I could read resentment in her eyes, but also a glimmer of something closer to recognition, like she sensed the shift in our family dynamics too. "What's going on, Maggie? You seem different." In that moment, I knew I had to tread lightly. "I found something about us, about our family," I began, weighing my words carefully. "I think we've been kept in the dark about a lot of things." Her expression shifted to skepticism. "What do you mean?" As I quietly revealed some of my discoveries, I watched her brow furrow. I was met with incredulity, then dread as the realization hit her. "No, that can't be true. Mom would never." "Wouldn't she?" I pressed. "The letters, the finances, it's all there, Sarah. We're not who we thought we were." I saw her falter for a moment, the foundations she had built her loyalties upon beginning to crack. "What are you going to do about it?" she finally asked, her voice edged with fear and concern. Perhaps for me, perhaps for herself. "I'm going to confront them with the truth," I replied firmly, feeling a new sense of empowerment settle in my bones. "What if they don't listen?" I smiled, a determined light igniting in my being as I replied, "That's why I'll be armed with facts, with proof. They won't be able to dismiss me this time." There it was, the first spark of a plan that would unroll like a well-laid blueprint. I longed to reclaim my voice, and I would reclaim my family history as well. The next few weeks passed like an intricate dance between tension and resolve. Sarah's reaction had shaken me in ways I didn't fully understand, but it ignited a flicker of hope that perhaps I wasn't as alone as I once believed. In the days following our conversation, I devoted myself to meticulously organizing the evidence I had gathered. The documents, letters, financial records, property transactions, formed a comprehensive narrative that pulled together the threads of my family's deception. With a methodical approach, I began my silent investigation, reaching beyond the confines of the safe. I started by visiting the local courthouse, the one place where I might uncover more secrets sealed away from prying eyes. Each visit brought new discoveries. I pored over property records like a detective deciphering clues. I realized that my family had purchased and sold properties under aliases, including the address of our childhood home. As I dug deeper, I stumbled upon layers of entities connected to our family business, shell companies and hiding places for assets that were quietly masked from the public eye. Each new revelation further crystallized my resolve. I noted everything in a worn notebook, clutching it like a lifeline to my disillusioned beliefs. Every stroke of my pen felt like reclaiming my voice, affirming my truth. Weeks turned into months, and soon I found myself enmeshed in a web of deceit that extended beyond mere financial filings. I followed whispers through public records, tracing the ripple effects of the decisions my family had made. I learned that my parents had once partnered with a company involved in ethically questionable business practices my father had vehemently rejected when they were discussed at the dinner table. It felt like stepping into a treacherous minefield, but for the first time in my life, I felt alive. With each passing day, I honed my skills in research, transforming my home into a command center where silence reigned, yet tension buzzed in the air. I had stopped attending family gatherings, presenting excuses about work that rarely held up. To shield my investigation, I adopted a facade of normalcy. I returned to the cafe where I had met Sarah and nonchalantly chatted with the barista, hoping to keep my secrets hidden beneath the surface. But soon I felt the weight of isolation. I missed the comforts of familial rituals, the laughter that once soothed my insecurities, the warmth of shared stories. But this path I walked felt necessary. It was a silent revolution brewing within me, demanding to be acknowledged. On a brisk Saturday afternoon, I decided to venture into my parents' world once again. My heart thudded in my chest as I approached the doors of the family business, once a source of pride, now a reminder of the betrayal I was deciphering. As I stepped inside, the familiar scent of polished wood mingled with fragrances from the nearby kitchen. The laughter that filled the air now felt hollow, a stark contrast to the sincerity I had grappling for in my relationship with them. My presence, however muted, did not go unnoticed. My father was nearby, discussing accounts with his assistant. His laughter rang out, booming like thunder to cloak me in uncomfortable familiarity. I felt out of place, a ghost haunting this space that was once mine as much as his. I avoided direct eye contact, clasping my hands together to maintain composure. As I faced the reception area, I sensed Sarah seated across a cozy booth with her friends, immersed in conversation. A flicker of melancholy ran through me, as envy mingled with a longing for connection. I was surrounded by family, yet felt more alone than ever. Determined, I took a moment in the bathroom to gather my thoughts. Staring into the mirror, I reminded myself of my purpose. They won't be able to dismiss me this time. That mantra had become my tranquilizer, soothing my fears and emboldening my resolve. Yet beneath the bravery, I felt a nagging anxiety ripple in my gut. What would happen when I finally unveiled the truths I unearthed? Would I tear apart the very fabric of the family I had fought to belong to? With every ounce of bravery I could muster, I walked back to the entrance, prepared to transform that anxious energy into the power of knowledge. I browsed through the collection of framed photographs along the wall, snapshots of happy moments that now felt tainted. The image of a sun-filled family vacation stirred an ache within me, but I fought against the tide of nostalgia. That happiness was merely a cover-up, just like the smiles plastered across my parents' faces as they basked in their victories. The clock ticked on, and I had no intention of waiting any longer. It was time for action. I needed a definitive plan to see my discovery become more than mere resentment and sorrow. I returned home, rifling through my notes, line after line revealing the extent of our family's facade. The wooden desk at home became my sacred space, a battlefield where I formatted my interview and assured confrontation, all while carrying the burden of their past errors. Over the next few days, logistics became my focus. I drafted a structured timeline. I planned when and how I would speak to my parents, aiming for a time when they were most relaxed, perhaps a Sunday evening dinner, the same space where innocence and deception had coiled around one another for so long. I envisioned entering with confidence, revealing the evidence one piece at a time. As the day approached, the skepticism began to creep back in. What if they dismissed my claims? What if they turned it against me and painted me as the disloyal daughter who fell from grace? I can't let that happen, I told myself. Each piece of evidence I had gathered lent weight to my power. I wasn't just seeking revenge, I was reclaiming my identity. Gripping my notebook, I paused at the threshold of my parents' home, trembling fingers brushing the polished doorknob. In that moment, I felt the fierce tide of change surge within me, a resolve to break through their carefully constructed illusion. I would illuminate the truth, risk the fallout, and embrace whatever consequences awaited. But one final thought lingered. Was this what it meant to be free? As I crossed the threshold into the familiar light of my childhood home, I felt the invisible chains of their control begin to loosen. I wasn't merely preparing to challenge the status quo. I was claiming the right to shape my narrative. It was time. This silence would breed no more darkness. The Sunday dinner arrived with a mix of anticipation and trepidation, the familiar atmosphere cocooning me in both comfort and anxiety. I had spent the entire week crafting my strategy, rehearsing the words in my mind until they were as polished as the glassware twinkling on the dining room table. My stomach churned as I took in the festive table setting. This was a ritual steeped in nostalgia, but tonight it felt loaded with unspoken tensions. With each plate set, each glass poured, my pulse quickened. Mom and Dad were in their typical roles, exchanging playful banter about the week's mundane events, as if they hadn't spent years constructing a house of cards around me. The warmth of their laughter grated against the truth simmering in my veins. I could almost see the edges of their carefully maintained facade beginning to fray. When I made my entrance, the initial glances from my parents revealed a mixture of surprise and warmth. They knew I had been distant, but I wore a mask of composed serenity, allowing none of the turmoil beneath the surface to seep through. "Hey, everyone." I forced a smile and took my seat, heart pounding against my ribcage. "How's work going, sweetheart?" my father inquired, genuine curiosity threading through his tone. I forced down the knot in my throat, reminding myself that this facade of normalcy would be short-lived. "It's good." "I've been focusing on a few projects," I replied, inwardly calculating how long it would take before I could move the conversation into the dangerous territory I had prepared myself for. We made light conversation, but I felt the web of unspoken tension wrapping tighter around me. Each laugh felt fainter, each story less vibrant as the truth writhed beneath the surface, battling against the veneer of family normalcy. I felt both anchored and trapped, an emotional tug-of-war that left me reeling. After dinner, I offered to help clean up, hoping an intimate setting might provide me with the opportunity to shift our discourse. Under the hum of washing dishes, I took deep breaths, focusing on the task while mentally reciting the key points I needed to emphasize. Mom turned on the radio, strumming nostalgic tunes into the air, momentarily drowning out my thoughts as I scrubbed away the remnants of the meal. It was now or never. As we finished the last dishes, I felt the weight of the moment press down upon me, squeezing the air from my lungs. "Mom, Dad, can we talk about something?" "Something I've discovered," I said, the words spilling out before I could second-guess myself. They turned to face me, the cheerful glow of family dissipating like mist. My father's brow furrowed. "Sure, Maggie. What's on your mind?" The moment hung in the air, heavy with anticipation and doubt. "I've been looking into our family's finances and, well, I found some things you need to see." My voice was steadier than I felt, conviction woven through the thread of my words. "What do you mean?" my mother questioned, an edge of concern creeping into her voice. "What things?" I pulled out my notebook and laid it down on the table, scattering its contents like confetti to lay bare the evidence of hidden truths. I motioned for them to observe, their eyes widening as they absorbed the documents I had painstakingly compiled. "These letters, the financial statements. It isn't what you led me to believe." A flicker of anxiety crossed my mother's face, but she quickly masked it. "Maggie, this doesn't prove anything. You must be mistaken." I leaned forward, heart pounding with a fierce readiness. "Am I? Or is the truth hiding in plain sight? You've both painted an image of hardship while hoarding successes that were considered unspeakable. I can't unsee it, and I refuse to be a part of this lie anymore." "Calm down," Dad interjected sharply, voice low but steady. "You're misinterpreting everything. You don't understand the complexity of our dealings." "No, Dad, you don't understand." I slammed my hand against the table, temporarily silencing the air between us. A nuclear silence followed, echoing the unsettling truth about my family's double life. "Your complexity has become my subjugation. You both expect me to play the dutiful daughter while being shrouded in hypocrisy." Their expressions hardened, defenses erecting like castle walls as they shifted nervously in their seats. My mother's hands trembled as she took one of the papers and scanned the details, her stomach sinking with realization. My father remained stoic, but I could see the veins on his forehead tighten, a sign of volatile emotion he tried to contain. "Where is this coming from?" my mother finally asked, her voice wavering slightly as she attempted to regain control. "Maggie, you've always been proud to be part of this family. Are you really willing to tear us apart over misunderstandings? It's not a misunderstanding. This is the truth. I'm tired of your definition of loyalty being built on a foundation of manipulation. For once in your life, see what you've built around me. A life where I'm meant to represent your successes while hiding in the shadows. You don't know what you're saying, my father's voice thundered, revealing the depth of his frustration and anger now uncontrolled. He paced the kitchen, hands running through his ever-graying hair. Family is about sacrifice. You turned your back on us, not the other way around. At that moment, the air shifted. The tension was electric. I shook my head, knowing that this was my moment to seize the narrative. No, I'm turning my back on your version of family, on the illusion you've sold me. You sacrificed my dreams without my consent. This cycle of fear and control ends now. My words hung thick and heavy, permeating the silence. They were wounded, defenseless in the wake of a truth they could no longer ignore. It was a battle not just for retribution, but for reclaiming the identity I had lost for far too long. I could see their composure faltering, trembling under the severity of my accusations. I pressed on, heart aflame with renewed vigor. This isn't an attack, it's a reclamation of my narrative. I want the family I believed in, one built on honesty, love, and transparency, not this facade of illusion. And I deserve to be seen, finally. Their silence spoke volumes, a reckoning unfolding on the other side of the table. I knew the hard road ahead wouldn't be easy. That confrontation was merely the beginning of reshaping my identity, but I felt a renewed sense of purpose fill the emptiness in my chest. I wasn't merely descending into chaos. I was carving a path toward the life I longed for. The roots of that betrayal were being unearthed, and in doing so I started reclaiming the essence of who I was always meant to be. This was a battle for my truth, and with every word spoken, the gravity of the moment anchored me more firmly in my resolve. The silence between us thickened, each breath a silent earthquake signaling the disintegration of the carefully constructed lives we had all been living. I locked eyes with my father. His expression shifted, revealing a crack in his facade. For the first time, I saw a glimpse of uncertainty behind his steely demeanor. As his world threatened to collapse, I waited, landing on the precipice of this confrontation. "What do you expect us to do, Maggie?" he finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're asking us to change everything we've built." "I'm asking you to acknowledge it," I replied, firm in my belief. "To recognize that it's not just you who built this family, it's all of us, including me. But I shouldn't have to sacrifice my identity for your legacy." I felt the ground beneath my feet shift in that moment, the dynamics of familial power reshaping before my very eyes. Their positions had always seemed immovable to me, but now they appeared fragile, just as I had been for far too long. The anger had ignited a passionate fire inside of me, a flame that drew its strength from years of pent-up emotions. "Your mother worked hard to create this. Everything you see," my father said, bitterness creeping into his voice. "We did it for you, Maggie, to give you everything we never had." "And what exactly is everything if it's built on lies?" I countered, voice raised but steady. "You taught me that integrity matters more than anything. You've created a gilded cage, and I don't want to live in it any longer." "They discovered we could thrive doing things our way. That's how business works," he replied, his brow knit tightly, anger choking his words. "You don't understand the sacrifices we made to ensure your future." "That's the part I do understand," I exclaimed, my heart racing. "You've used my life as collateral in your reckless game. You consider these sacrifices to be gifts, but they're ultimately for your own gain." Tension hung in the air like a dark cloud, pressing down upon us. I could feel an avalanche of emotions building, and I understood that this confrontation would serve as the reckoning not just for them, but for me. I was tearing down their image of control, their expectations of who I was meant to be. My mother stood silently, clutching the table, and for a fleeting moment, I saw something akin to sorrow reflecting in her eyes. "Maggie, please," she finally said, the quiver in her voice revealing vulnerability, a side of her I had rarely witnessed. "You don't know the burdens we carry. We just wanted what was best for you." We all make choices, Mom. But you can't protect me from the consequences of yours, I rebutted, relentless in pushing for the truth. And if you continue to shield me from what's real, you'll only end up losing me completely. My father crossed his arms, staring blankly through me as if searching for an escape route. You think you know what's best for everyone, but you're so young. This is our legacy. We've built an entire empire, and now you want to destroy it over some misunderstandings? I took a deep breath, focusing on the sensations coursing through me, the fiery resolve igniting my senses. I want to build my legacy, one based on authenticity, love, and acceptance. Breaking the cycle won't destroy you. It could save both of us. Otherwise, you're just keeping me locked away in a gilded prison, rooted in falsehoods. In that instant, it felt as if the air crackled with an electric tension. My words had unleashed the ghost of a confrontation years overdue, a reckoning long overdue in the intricacies of betrayal that had grated at my soul. Then, my father's expression shifted. He seemed to retreat into himself, the intimidation that followed his authority flickering in uncertainty. "Maggie," my mother began, but I sensed time was slipping away. I pressed on. "I'm not going to continue pretending everything's okay. We either face this together, or I will walk away. I refuse to be the silent daughter played like a pawn in your game of chess," I declared, impassioned, and versus the very traits they had conditioned me to submit. "Look at what's happening. I'm asking you to listen. Don't dismiss me as some misguided child." My father blinked. The refusal to see was less about me than it was about his need for control. "And if we don't?" he challenged, folding his arms in defiance, presenting a facade of authority, but now draped with uncertainty. "If you can't embrace truth, you will lose me," I offered, my heart pounding but sure. "Both of you should know, this isn't merely about the family business. It's about our family and how someone like you could have misconstrued values to believe success means at the cost of another." The silence that followed was profound. My mother covered her mouth, a look of dawning acknowledgement surging beneath her facade. Infringements of guilt dripped through, sinking into the past layers of my family dynamics. "I'm not your enemy," I continued. "Breaking free won't shatter you. It could liberate us if you let it." For the first time, my parents shared a glance laden with unspoken revelations. Their defenses seemed porous amid the barrage of truth I had laid bare, and I watched as the tension between them spooled taut like a rope on the verge of unraveling. In that moment, it became clear that the power dynamic had shifted. I was no longer the overlooked daughter. I had stood defiantly, taking ownership of my narrative, and they were left reeling. "I will not continue this legacy," I said quietly, pulling my resolve like an interior compass, guiding me toward the truth. "If we're going to heal, I need you both to face the reality of this family's foundation, or I'll have no choice but to step away." In that fragile silence, I realized I was no longer the girl caught in their shadow. As the weight of my words faded in the air, I felt liberated. I understood that confronting the truth was a cut of the chains I had carried alone for countless years. "Let this be the turning point," I suggested, quieter now yet resolute. "Let's promise one another to make amends and re-establish our narrative, based on trust and authenticity." As I felt the atmosphere shift further, a new catharsis unveiled itself, the chance to assume control over my life and identity, emerging with the strength I had discovered. I wanted reconciliation, not just for them, but for myself. This moment could either solidify or shatter my parental bonds, but I was ready to meet whatever came next. The silence lingered, thick with the weight of unsaid words. I could see my mother's resolve wavering, her eyes glistening with unspoken regrets. "Maggie, she began, but her voice faltered, the emotions catching in her throat. I felt a rush of mixed feelings, fear, hope, and a burgeoning sense of control, ready to take on the future. "Breaking free won't shatter us. It could liberate us if you let it," I encouraged gently, standing firm in my truth. I watched as my parents exchanged glances filled with a newfound vulnerability. The defenses that had kept us apart for so long were slowly crumbling. I don't want to walk away, I continued, my heart racing. If we can confront our realities together, we can heal. But you both must be willing to face the consequences of your choices, just like I have. A shift permeated the room, and I could sense my father wrestle with the weight of my words. I never wanted to lose you, Maggie, he admitted, his voice strained. It was a moment of reckoning as I realized that our familial ties could be remade, beginning with honesty and acceptance. My mother finally lowered her hand from her mouth, the weight of her guardedness lifting just slightly. We thought we were doing what was best for you, she said, her voice shaking. But we see now that we may have done more harm than good. You created an illusion, I said softly, and I was suffocating under it. It's time for us to let go of that illusion. With that, we began to share our truths. Each revelation unleashed emotions long buried within us: guilt, disappointment, and an unexpected warmth of understanding. I learned of my mother's sacrifices, her dreams fading beneath layers of responsibility. My father spoke of insecurities he'd masked as ambition. Through each exchange, we bravely ventured further into the depths of our shared pain, dismantling the barriers that had kept us apart. Light and shadows danced in our dialogue, as laughter mingled with tears. The cathartic release felt like a storm breaking, thunderous and cleansing. Weeks turned into months, and we established a new routine. Family meetings that prioritized feelings over facades. No longer would our conversations be hollow. We were adamant about fostering authenticity in our relationships. The gradual progress was a beautiful amalgamation of hope and vulnerability, a remarkable path toward reconciliation. Sarah observed our changes with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. Her eyes softened as she witnessed my transformation. My confidence surged as I articulated my desires and boundaries openly, recognizing my worth and standing firmly apart from the expectations placed upon me. I took up journaling again, not only to catalog the tumultuous past, but to record our evolution. Each page became a tender testament to our journey, stories woven together with resilience and determination. With every written word, I reinforced my growing independence while nurturing our relationships. As the seasons changed, I noticed the boundaries of love and trust expanding, stitching our connection with the threads of authenticity. Together, we built new traditions that honored our past while embracing our future. Our gatherings around the dinner table felt richer, laughter more profound, and the unspoken understood. Yet, as I curled up in bed each night, reflecting on our progress, I realized this transformation was an ongoing process. It required tenacity and candidness, some uncomfortable, but ultimately culminating in something beautiful: the reclamation of our family bond. In my heart, I understood that breaking the cycle of betrayal was only the beginning. This journey taught me that confronting the painful truths empowers growth, transforming resentment into a foundation for love. This newfound life swelled within me, a life of authenticity, acceptance, and boundless possibilities, illuminating the path forward. No longer held captive by unfulfilled potential, I was celebrating harmony with my family and celebrating the power of truth. This was the start of a new chapter, marked by hope and the promise of a brighter future together. They thought they had left me with nothing. If this story is touching your heart, please consider sending a super chat to support the channel. Are you enjoying this journey with me? Show your support by sending super stickers. Did you feel that sense of justice? Show your appreciation by clicking the super thanks button. They thought they had left me with nothing.